It had been 4 days since Mark left on his business trip. The house felt strangely hollow without him, too still, too quiet. Even though he spent most of his time wrapped up in work, his presence had filled the space in subtle ways. Without it, the silence became something I couldn't ignore. That morning, I slept in longer than usual. Sunlight spilled softly through the curtains, warming the sheets around me. There was no rush, nothing urgent to do. The kitchen was clean, the laundry done. I could hear the washing machine humming faintly, a steady rhythm in the background. Mom. I turned toward the door. Alex stood there, his hair a mess of curls, eyes still adjusting to the light. You're up early, I said, sitting up. I smelled coffee, he said, padding into the room barefoot in his worn gray joggers. Did you already make breakfast? Just starting. Want pancakes or eggs? Both. He grinned, and I smiled back. You're lucky, I like you. He laughed deeper than it used to be, not quite the sound of a boy anymore. Sometimes, the way he was growing startled me. He used to need help tying his shoes. Now he towered over me, quiet, thoughtful, changing in ways I hadn't fully seen until now. I'll be downstairs, he said, heading out. Don't burn the eggs again. I tossed a pillow after him, but he ducked out of the way, laughing as he disappeared. The kitchen felt warmer with him in it. He moved around like he belonged there, not just in the space, but in the moment. We cooked side by side, plating eggs and stacking pancakes, chatting about nothing in particular, sports, college plans, even the odd smell coming from the basement. Between bites, he asked, "How long is Dad gone?" "At least another week. Maybe more, depending on meetings." He nodded, but something lingered in his voice, a quiet question left unsaid. "You miss him?" He shrugged. "It's just weird without him." "Yeah," I said. It is the silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was familiar, filled with a kind of understanding that didn't need words. Later that day, while I was outside trimming the hedge, I heard music from inside the house. I came in to find Alex lying across the couch, playing my old R&B playlist. The kind of music Mark and I used to listen to when we first met. Feeling nostalgic? I asked, grabbing a glass of water. He tilted his head back, humming along. It makes the house feel warmer. I sat next to him. You've always liked being cozy. Only around people who don't ruin it. I raised an eyebrow. Is that your way of saying I don't ruin it? He looked at me steadily. Obviously, there was something in his gaze, steady, honest. It caught me off guard, not in a bad way, just in a way that made me suddenly aware of how fast time passes. You ever get bored? He asked. Of what? Everything. Life, routine. I nodded. Not bored. Exactly. Just like something's missing, but you can't name it. He nodded too, like he'd been waiting for someone else to say it. That night, a storm rolled in. I was finishing up the dishes when the power flickered and finally went out. I'm here. Alex called from the stairs, flashlight in hand, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Well, this is cozy, I joked. He grinned. You scared? Not of the dark. Just don't want to step on a Lego. We lit candles and sat in the living room, playing cards. At some point, he leaned back and asked, "Do you think people are meant to live in big houses?" What do you mean? Feels like everyone's always in their own rooms, behind closed doors. But now, with the lights out, it feels different, more together. He wasn't wrong. I thought about how Mark and I had grown used to sleeping back to back. How dinners had turned into quiet meals, interrupted only by phones and background noise. But this, sitting together, no distractions, felt more honest. You're right, I said. It does feel more connected. He looked at me. You're different when Dad's not here. Different how? More yourself. Happier, brighter. I didn't know what to say, so I smiled. Maybe it's the candles. He laughed. Yeah, must be. The next morning, everything returned to normal. The hum of appliances, the quiet shuffle of routine. But something from the night before lingered. You were singing in my dream, Alex said, pouring cereal. That song we played yesterday, you were glowing. His words hit deeper than I expected. I had stopped singing, stopped doing a lot of things I once loved. Maybe I should start again. You should. That evening, I found him fiddling with the old record player in the garage. You want to hear me sing that badly? I teased. He smiled. I just want to feel again, like things used to feel. That line stayed with me. When it rained that night, I stood by the window listening to the music, playing low. I didn't even notice Alex had joined me until he asked, "You okay?" just remembering. Want company? He stood beside me, his shoulder touching mine, and we watched the rain in silence. I don't want this week to end, he said softly. Why? Because it feels like we're more than family. Like we're friends. I was quiet for a moment. I feel that too. Over the next few days, we grew closer. We cooked, cleaned, watched old movies, shared stories we'd never told anyone else. It wasn't about needing each other, it was about seeing each other, truly. I began to see Alex, not just as my son, but as a thoughtful young man. And he saw me, not just as his mother, but as a woman who once danced in the kitchen and sang to no one in particular. When the final day came, I felt a quiet ache. Mark would return tomorrow, and things would shift. That night, Alex came into my room without knocking. You okay? I nodded. Just thinking about what happens next. We go back, I said. But we don't forget. I won't, he said. Me neither. Mark returned the next day, suitcase in hand, business voice in full effect. The atmosphere changed, not bad, just different. The warmth of the past week folded away like a keepsake. At dinner, Mark talked about meetings and emails while Alex and I sat quietly, offering the expected nods. The space between us felt different now, not lost, but hidden. Later that night, I found Alex in his room staring out the window. Can't sleep? He asked. Not really. We sat together in the quiet. Do you think everything will go back to how it was? It already has, I replied. I don't want it to. I know. We sat close, knee to knee, and I said, we found something this week. Yeah, but what if the noise drowns it out? It won't. Not if we remember. In the days that followed, Mark returned to his routine. Alex seemed more introspective, reading more, walking outside, spending time by the trees, like he did when he was younger. One day I found a note on the counter, written in Alex's handwriting. You're more than you remember. Don't let the silence get buried again. I folded it carefully and kept it in my journal. When the power flickered again one night, I smiled. You remember? I asked. I never forgot, he said. Eventually, Mark traveled again, just a weekend trip. That night, the house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. Alex brought 2 mugs of hot chocolate and sat beside me. I've been thinking a lot lately, he said. About who I want to be, what kind of life I want, and I want to live like we did that week. Connected, alive. Then, do it, start now. He smiled. It started with you. And I knew he was right. That week reminded me of who I was, and who I still could be. Months passed. The seasons shifted, and even though life moved forward, something had changed between us. Permanently, one afternoon, I found a journal page left open on the table. Alex had written, sometimes you find pieces of yourself in people you never expected, and it changes you quietly, deeply, forever. On my birthday, Mark sent flowers from a hotel lobby. Alex, however, made dinner. He sang loudly, badly, and gave me a small box. Inside was a necklace, a tiny flame. For the light, he said, so you never forget how you glowed. I couldn't speak. I just hugged him. We never spoke in detail about that week again. We didn't need to. It wasn't a secret, it was a memory. A shared recognition, the kind that says, I see you, and I always have.